the New York Yankees playing the last week pretty good baseball. The Yankees have slowly but surely moved up in the wild card race, and now they're in sole custody of second place, a second wild card. You talk about the Boston Red Sox. Last night they beat the Boston Red Sox 8-3. Garrett Cole pitched a gem. And with the Yankees need to get a win from Garrett Cole every time he pitches every 5 days. They need Garrett Cole to show up and be the big, highly profiled pitcher that they paid $326 million a couple of years ago. So with the Yankees, they're getting timely hitting from Gleyber Torres, who's on a 10-game hitting streak. You talk about Aaron Judge. He's hitting the ball very, very well for the last 3 weeks. So Aaron Judge is hot. Giancarlo Stanton's hitting the hell out of the ball right now. I don't understand Aaron Boone right now with at the first base position. I know Luke Voit has played very good offensively, but he's not anywhere close to the defensive player of Anthony Rizzo. Why Voit is playing over Anthony Rizzo makes absolutely no sense to me. I think he's the better all-around player. So I think Aaron Boone needs to figure things out as the season is coming to an end, because if you do make the playoffs, you need to make the right choice. You need to make sure you got the right guy in playing at that position.
Yeah, Rizzo has to be the guy no matter what for the playoffs. He has a lot of experience with the Cubs. His playoff numbers are good, not great, but they still need that kind of guy in there. They need that left-handed bat. Luke Voigt's a right-handed bat. And Anthony Rizzo, phenomenal defender at first base, one of the best we've seen in this generation of baseball. So they absolutely have to get that in. But the lineup depth has finally picked it up, and that's what the Yankees needed. A lot of Yankee fans were saying, oh, Gleyber Torres shouldn't be on the playoff roster. Well, he's showing you why he should be, and he's been your best playoff hitter for quite a while now. And Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, it was only a matter of time before they woke up and out of their slumps. And the Yankees have needed that kind of overall production, especially from that side of the plate, where the other guys weren't doing it before that. Joey Gallo's starting to hit now, too, which is a big thing for the Yankees, too, because when he gets hot, he's hot. He's a very streaky hitter, obviously strikes out a lot, but when he gets hot, he's definitely one of the best power hitters in the entire league. So they need that, especially from a left-handed bat, the presence that they need it for. And in terms of the bullpen, it's been a woe for them still, but they've managed it a lot better, which is good. And creativity is going to be key if they do end up making the playoffs. Right now, 2 games up on the Mariners and the Blue Jays for that second wild card spot, and right now playing the Red Sox in that 1-game playoff. So it's still early to tell, but it looks like they're right now in that spot to be able to prepare for that kind of circumstance. They still have to win those games down the stretch, but the Yankees do have a favorable schedule outside of Tampa remaining for the rest of the season, which is a good sign. Now, the Red Sox do too, so they can't go in any bad slumps too. I think the Red Sox have the Orioles and the Nationals to finish the season. They can't go in any bad slumps there, but the Blue Jays, they went cold finally after their hot streak. Seattle, I mean, I don't know if I still necessarily trust them. And Oakland, who I thought was going to make it for a while, they took a big hit losing all the games they did at Seattle, so I think they're done now.
I think with the Yankees, they're going to have to get good pitching. Their rosters have grown. You add 5 players to the roster. So the Yankees, to me, have a lot of depth. Their bullpen has been very weak all season long. Usually it's the New York Yankees' strength going into the playoffs is their bullpen. Well, it's not their strength anymore. Their starting pitching is their strength. Now, they added Severino to that bullpen, so when you look at the Yankees right now and where the Yankees are positioned, the Yankees are positioned in a very good position to make the playoffs. Now, they got to keep winning. They have the hardest schedule out of all the teams still in this race with Oakland, Seattle, the Blue Jays. The Yankees have the hardest schedule out of all the teams. So going into this next 2 weeks of baseball, the Yankees are going to have to keep winning and playing top-end baseball. So if they're getting timely hitting for Joey Gallo, like you said, and Gleyber Torres and Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, and everybody's hitting on all cylinders, well, then the Yankees have a very good chance of making the second wild card, or even first wild card, if they can knock off the Boston Red Sox. So I think the Yankees are positioned very, very well to make the playoffs, Speedy.
And they also did well yesterday against Nathan Eovaldi, who normally has pitched well against the Yankees since he's joined the Red Sox. And that's a good confidence boost for these other offensive players, too, that they could finally overcome a monkey off their back. The Red Sox obviously doing what they did in the first half of the season against the Yankees, and now the Yankees have kind of turned the tide. They, I think, won 5 out of the 6 games they played after the All-Star break. They win this one. They score 7 runs in the first 3 innings. That's a big confidence boost for an all-around offense. And in terms of Luis Severino, I like that they're testing him in the bullpen because it gives them that kind of experience when it comes to a mentality. Sometimes it's hard for starting pitchers to transition into the bullpen for a postseason strategy standpoint. We've seen certain teams win World Series that way, fine. But we've also seen it backfire too. Not every pitcher could be able to just transition easily. Same kind of thing with a closer in a non-closing situation.
Yep.
So I like that they're experimenting with him out of the bullpen to start.
He's going to stay in the bullpen.
Okay.
They're not taking him out of the bullpen.
I could believe that, but that's why I think it's good for the mentality, where you don't have the starting routine. You don't have the thinking of, I have to hold it back on the velocity because I have to go more innings. If Luis Severino's pitching as a stretch reliever, 2 innings out of the bullpen, or even just 1 with the 3 batters, he can use that velocity if it does come back. Now, we'll see how it is consistently, but he's done well with his fastball so far, and even some of his harder off-speed pitches too, which is a good sign.
He's looked really, really good. The little bit of time that we've seen Luis Severino in the game, he still has that quality pitching style. And I will say this. I think this is a smart move by the Yankees, Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone, that they are putting Severino in the bullpen and helping out in the bullpen. They don't need him as a starter. They have Corey Kluber back. Montgomery's playing good baseball. You have Garrett Cole. I think your pitching staff is pretty strong. It's the bullpen that's very, very weak. You need another strong pitcher in that bullpen that's going to help out the long relief, because one of these pitchers get into trouble if they make it past the wild card game. Well, then you're going to need a guy like Luis Severino to pitch 2 or 3 innings, and he has the ability to do that. So I think Luis Severino coming back in the bullpen only helps the Yankees as they move closer to the playoffs.
Not to mention, too, we've seen Severino in certain playoff games, not every playoff game, have a lot of trouble in the first inning of a playoff game. So you wonder if the mindset of switching to a reliever could actually help him, where he's coming in, not necessarily a high-pressure situation. I wouldn't put him like a bases-loaded and have runners reliever, but at least put him in a situation where he's more comfortable. We've seen him have duds. The game he showed up late, too, against the Red Sox, the wild card game against the Twins, where he allowed the 4 runs, I believe, in the first inning. So that's a good transition to ease him back in.
I will say this with the New York Mets, the Mets are not as happy or excited what's going to happen at the end of this season, because in 2 or more games, the Mets are going to be knocked out of the playoffs. Yep. Their season will be over. But there are some bright things about the New York Mets that we have seen so far this year. And Jacob deGrom early in the season looked like as good a pitcher in baseball as we've seen any pitcher pitch. If Jacob deGrom could stay healthy and play a whole season, Jacob deGrom is as good a pitcher as any pitcher in baseball. We all know that already. He's a talented pitcher. We're going to have to figure out and find out what they're going to do with Syndergaard. Syndergaard, who has not pitched all season long. This is 2 straight years of no pitching for Noah Syndergaard. He's a free agent. Do the Mets sign him in the offseason? Do you see a guy like Steve Cohen give this kid $100 million? Is he worth it after not pitching for 2 years with his oblique problems, his shoulder problems? I don't know if the Mets are going to put that much money into a salary where they don't know if this guy's 100% healthy, Speedy.
I think Syndergaard, they're going to just trust the qualifying offer right now. They're going to have him kind of on a prove-it deal where he could do it for 1 full season.
Will he take that?
I think he will, because I think he likes the culture of the Mets. I think he's always been committed to that. Syndergaard, even though he's been in trade rumors, has never said any bad things about the Mets. They've been critical of certain management decisions, okay, Mickey Callaway, everything that was going on with him, but he's always liked the culture there. He's always liked the Mets fan. So I think he will end up taking the qualifying offer. Do I trust him to actually pitch well for a whole season is another question, with all the injuries he's had, with the lat, with the oblique, now a torn UCL, had Tommy John surgery. And even when he was at the top of his game, he still was kind of inconsistent. And I want to see him develop as an overall pitcher, too. We know he has good stuff, hard stuff, 5 pitches when he uses them all right, but sometimes he doesn't use them all right. The sequencing, the growing, the mental part of the game for Syndergaard, especially being out of baseball for as long as he has, too, will be the other step to see if he can get that money. In terms of deGrom, I think something's going to come out at the end of the season, because we all know that he wanted to pitch, then he said he wanted to shut down for the All-Star break. I think there's some management and or front office thing involved in that, where I think that's going to be revealed at the end of the season, and I feel like it's going to lead to some kind of downfall for somebody. Obviously, the GMs are going to be gone anyway, because they just have their own issues.
They're already gone.
Yeah, but Jacob deGrom obviously taking...
They're off to Hawaii, both of them. They're both hanging out, sipping some octane wine or whatever the heck they're drinking over there. One of them likes to get drunk. The other one likes to send crazy pictures to women. So, I mean, they're both hanging out with each other, you know. Martinis for everyone.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see something at the end of the season come out of what really happened with Jacob deGrom. And I'm just hoping it doesn't lead to any kind of organizational fallout, because especially, too, because Jacob deGrom got technically underpaid for the contract that he is. We know he's a great pitcher. He deserves even more money than he got. So you wonder if that kind of thing could lead to some kind of fallout. I hope not, but again, with the way they managed him this year, this is his first bad injury since he was in the minor leagues. How will he take it?
That was one thing Brody did well. and that was give Jacob deGrom the contract that really saved the Mets a lot of money. I don't think Steve Cohen cares because he knows how good Jacob is. He would have paid Jacob whatever he wanted. But obviously, at the time, Steve Cohen wasn't owning the team. So now they got him on a bargain. And now moving forward, Jacob deGrom is playing on a great bargain contract. So
you know your team's had a lot of trouble when Brody Van Wagenen has been the most stable of your last 3 GMs.
Well, that's true, too. But the Mets have a lot of work to do in the offseason. First of all, they got to get Pete Alonso a contract. Extend him, give him the contract that he needs so he feels comfortable. They got to decide what they're doing with Javi Baez, where Baez, to me, has been nothing but a problem ever since he's gone there to the New York Mets. Now, he's a great hitter. He's a great talent. He's one of the best players in baseball. The problem with him is, could he live and play here for the next 8 to 9 years? Him and Lindor are good friends, but is it good that these two guys are great friends and causing havoc on the field? They've done it against the Yankees. We've seen that in a couple of games. The thumbs down, which caused a lot of problem, a lot of stir, not only to the press and the world of New York Met fans. So we don't know where this team is going as far as I'm concerned, with obviously Francisco Lindor, who didn't have such a great season, batting, 226 this year?
Yeah,
for a guy that's
highest at one point was 230.
And he got $331 million in the offseason, 11-year contract. So I think when you look at the New York Mets, they got to decide in a lot of ways where this team is going and where they're going with this team as far as Sandy Alderson, where their GM is coming from, what they're doing as an ownership as well.
Baez definitely helped his case the way he's hit in September. He's been the Mets' best in terms of consistent hitter, and he hasn't struck out as much as he usually did, which is a good sign when it comes to him being a guy that doesn't get on base a lot. He's progressed nicely, which is a good sign. And in terms of Lindor, again, we're just hoping he bounces back for a second season, maybe just had a woeful yip-ridden season in New York. Hopefully that's all it is, and it's not a product of downfall, a product of the injuries that he suffered after the All-Star break. So that's going to be a big question. I agree with you on Alonso, too. Get the contract done now before it could get peak even higher, especially for first baseman, where we're seeing that's going to be a high priority.
He's going to make his money no matter what.
Especially power hitting. So when these guys get paid in their prime, in comparison to getting paid earlier, we've seen these guys get bargains out of it. We've seen the Braves do it. We've seen the White Sox do it. We've seen the Blue Jays do it. Teams that are growing. The Blue Jays are not a playoff team right now, but still could be. And the White Sox are.
But the Braves gave Acuna. I mean, seriously.
Acuna and Albies both got bargain contracts. So it's a modern trend that the Mets have to start adopting to. They need to realize we need a balance. Even though Steve Cohen's there and he has a lot of money, you need a balance between giving players the big money and realizing, all right, we still need to manage.
I'm surprised, Speedy. You of all people are one of the only Met fans that I know that can sit here and say, you know what? We don't need to spend all this money to bring in players. We can still build this team with the players that we have in our farm system. We don't need to go out and try to buy the world so we have the next George Steinbrenner New York Yankee team.
Right, because we've seen the downfall of that kind of system, too, in today's era of baseball. The Dodgers, obviously, they're great. They've gotten away with it because they do everything.
The second best farm system in baseball.
They develop players well. They get misfits from other teams that make it work. They're the exception to the rule. They shouldn't be what other teams should. I mean, you could hope they get there, but they shouldn't be what they should aim for as a realistic goal. We've seen the Angels do it. We've seen the Tigers do it. Before they won the World Series, we saw the Nationals do it with a lot of big contracts. Now we're seeing it with the Phillies, with all the hitters that they paid. So it doesn't always work. And while they might have a couple playoff years here and there, the Tigers still went to the World Series. They still were a very good team. They had a big downfall where after that 2014 season, they fell from grace in a big way. And the Angels still have not recovered despite all the talent that they have with their star power. They just never can get pitching. So there's always been a big question mark with teams that have that kind of philosophy. You need to find that middle ground in terms of keeping your own guys, developing your own guys too, and balancing it. It's a depth era of baseball with analytics. It's a depth era of baseball with player management and injury management. And it's not just about having a couple stars to win.
Well, again, this has been a fun baseball season. The season's almost over. We have 14 games, 15 games left. Most teams do. The two teams that really stand out to me, if they can squeak into the playoffs, is the St. Louis Cardinals, where I think they're very, very dangerous.
14 wins in a row.
Yeah, they've been unbelievable. They really have played good baseball, and they have a very good chance of squeaking into the playoffs. And if they do, I told you guys in the beginning of the season, who did I pick to win the World Series in the National League or go to the World Series? I picked the Cardinals. And I still think the Cardinals, if they squeak into the playoffs, they're going to beat anybody in the National League. Because as good as San Francisco looks, and they're good, there's no question that they are. They're the best team in baseball right now. San Francisco isn't this good. They're not. They're good, but they're not this good. And the LA Dodgers, as good as they are from roster, from top to bottom, from their bullpen to their starting rotation, now that they have Max Scherzer there and the acquisitions that they made at the trade deadline, this is still a team that has deficiencies, have weaknesses. And that's why when I look at this team, the Dodgers, in a 7-game series, I think St. Louis can beat them. I think Milwaukee can beat them with their pitching staff. And I still think the Braves can too. So I think that when you look at the National League, it's anybody's ball game. And in the American League, we all knew Tampa was going to win the American League East. They took over the American League East early in the season. The White Sox, they've played fantastic baseball with Tony La Russa taking over the team. He's been a huge difference on winning over there.